let's talk to Ted, pronouns he, him, calling in from Wallaby Anus, who says that President Trump has some good ideas. Ted, you're on the line with Qasim and Forrest. How you doing today?
Doing good. You guys hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
So what specific good ideas has President Trump put forward?
I think what he's done on the trans issues and sort of broader wokeness is good. And I also support securing the southern border, which Biden completely failed at.
Okay. Can you define what is wokeness for me?
So wokeness is intersectionality, if you might have heard of that idea. So it's sort of looking at society through identity groups. Like
so
white
you don't believe that
people,
intersectionality.
gay people versus straight.
Sorry. So
I believe that
are you defining, I just want to be very clear because I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you defining intersectionality as pitting identities against each other?
Yeah, I'm defining it as like that mindset of looking for every specific identity group you can have and looking at the oppressor versus oppressed mindset.
Okay.
So that's wokeness to me.
I've already got a million questions, but Qasim, do you want to start? You are our guest, so I'm going to take notes over here. Do you want to jump in?
Sure. Well, no, that's not what intersectionality is. So your fundamental understanding of intersectionality is wrong. Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined that term, talked about the recognition that people can have multiple perspectives and multiple identities that impact their life, and there are multiple aspects that intersect with one another. So, for example, if you're a woman, there's a higher likelihood that you're going to be low income as well. And so that simply says that there's an intersectionality between being a woman and poverty. That's it. It's just acknowledging that reality. It says that if you're low income, whether you're black or white or brown or yellow or purple, what have you.
Yeah, this is pretty much what I was saying. This is what I was saying. This is exactly what I was saying.
No. Okay, good. So you think it's bad?
Either way,
so you think it's bad to recognize that poverty afflicts women more than it afflicts men?
Yeah, I think it's a toxic, divisive mindset. We should look at people as individuals. We shouldn't look at people through their race, through their every identity group they have.
But that's not the question I asked, though. So what I asked was, do you think it's bad to recognize that poverty harms women more than it harms men?
I don't think it's bad to recognize that inherently, but I think our society had an obsessive.
That is the concept of intersectionality.
Obsessive with identity groups, right? And our society became obsessive with that mindset.
So Ted, just to be clear, you do understand? Like, surely you agree that when we're talking about these identity markers, be it racial, sexual, sexuality, gender, whatever, like when we're talking about these identity markers, do you agree they do exist? I'm sure, right?
Of course, yeah.
Like I'm not just a blob of human. I am a man. I am also a male. I'm white. I'm I guess middle class. I don't know what words mean in that case, but these are all things that I can use to describe myself. And inherently, do you also agree that those would also give you some insight into my situation as an American?
This is where I lose track of things. Like, I don't think that anybody has any greater opinion just because they were born in a so-called
That's not what I just asked. That's not what I just asked you. What I asked is, do you agree that these identity markers that I can describe about myself, if you know those things about me, you can also probably make some predictions statistically about my condition as an American?
Yeah, you can do that. But do you agree that colleges should not be discriminating based on race?
That what can't be?
Colleges and jobs and a lot of organizations.
They're not supposed to.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to, but they do. Right.
And
they still do.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI.
So we're going to get to that in a minute because that makes no fucking sense. But I want to just stick to where we're at right now. No, and that makes no sense at all, and we're going to talk about it here in a second. But first, I would like you to try to address what Qasim and I are trying to get across to you, which is that if we're talking, for example, about a black gay woman, right? She has individual specific problems or experiences that are circled around her being black. And she also has issues, problems, experiences, whatever, that are centered around her being a woman. And she also has problems and issues and experiences that are centered around her being gay. And she has individual experiences that are centered around her being a gay woman. And she has individual experiences that are centered around her being a black gay person. And she has individual experiences about her being a black woman. And she has each of these things each of these little categories come with their own experiences, their own problems, their own issues, and also they compound individually with one another, right? So she doesn't have just black problems and she doesn't have just woman problems. She has those. And she has black woman problems, which is a totally different kind of thing. So like that's what we're talking about with intersectionality. We're just saying that, that is the parts of a person's identity matter. They matter to their existence and their experiences, and they matter socially and politically and economically. They matter.
No, see,
if you disagree with that,
that is wokeness. That's what wokeness is. This obsessive
what I just described.
It's this obsessive
what I just described
is
all
the
just reality
of each identity group and all how hard it was to be this group, and that is wokeness. We should just move on and look at people as individuals.
But Ted, I don't think you're agreeing with us, but not admitting you're agreeing with us, because I'll give you an example of my son. I have a son who has a speech impediment, right? We have to take him to therapy to pronounce words that, he's 12 now, words that 4-year-olds can pronounce just fine. At 12, he can't. He has a speech impediment, right? And that affects how he learns. It affects how he functions. It affects how he communicates. It affects how he takes tests. Now, if I were to say, hey, this is wokeness, you're obsessing over something that doesn't matter, get over it, do you think that's going to solve his handicap or his speech impediment? Or do you think we need to have a well-crafted learning lesson and therapy to get him the help and guidance he needs to overcome that speech impediment? Those are the two options. Do we ignore it and hope it goes away? Or do we acknowledge its existence and craft a lifestyle around him to get him the help and guidance he needs to be his full self? Which one?
So on an individual cases, we should do that. But I think your analogy is getting at the idea of equity, that we should be having different standards and trying to elevate certain groups, which is what I object.
Before you said but, you said on an individual case, we should do that. Okay, good. That's what intersectionality does. It recognizes that individual people have different lived experiences and different parts of their life that not everybody else may be able to experience. And we should recognize that out of empathy. Just because it's not an issue for us doesn't mean it's not an issue. And that's kind of the definition of privilege, right? That a privilege is something that isn't a problem because it isn't a problem for you. I'm a guy. I have male privilege. I will never know what it's like to have to hold my keys between my fingers, walking to my car late at night in fear that a man might attack me and try to rape me. That doesn't mean
that's not true. Men are more likely to be the victims of violent crime.
That has not anything to do. So just to be very clear, that has nothing to do with what Qasim was just saying. What you just engaged with is a little thought stopper to try to throw out a little statistic to derail everything.
Define what a woman is. What even is a man? You said you're a man. What's a man?
Yeah, Ted, I easily can, but I'm not trying to derail the conversation on yet another fucking rabbit trail for you. We're hoping to get you to just actually honestly address what we're talking about.
So earlier, Ted, you said you agree that we should have a well-crafted piece of guidance for my son who has a speech impediment. Do you still agree with that, or have you changed your mind?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, you agree. Okay, great. So that's what intersectionality acknowledges. That's it. What about that as a practice?
I have a question.
I mean, this is now.
I have a question as well for Ted.
About rabbit holes. This is a rabbit hole now. Okay, what's up?
This is literally the first thing that you said that we're still trying to address. Ted, what I have an issue with is you said
pointless stuff.
This is literally, again, the first thing that you brought up that we are still trying to hash out.
Okay, just
Qasim brought up his son. Qasim brought up his son and talked about a speech impediment that he has and is trying to now ameliorate that situation for his son. And you said on an individual level that works. But when we take that to a societal level, I am paraphrasing. When you take that to a societal level and you're trying to fix all these things for all these people, then you have some big problem. My follow-up question for you, Ted, what is society made from?
It's made of people.
Individual people, right? Each one of which,
right, but
like
the thing
Qasim's
is,
son,
once you,
has their own unique
yeah,
issues.
but see, this is the
So
problem.
as a society, if we try to generalize everything and just make society work for this random, standard, arbitrary template of human that we think everybody should be able to live up to, you're going to miss out on literally every single person. You understand that that's a problem?
When I say I disagree with applying it to groups, I mean I don't support affirmative action and stuff like that.
So this is the yet another buzzword that you're throwing out here. Like when you said DEI and you equated DEI to discrimination. It's like, it sounds to me like you have this image in your head that everybody who isn't a cisgendered heterosexual white man is somehow being pandered to or handed some special opportunity that you don't get or something like that. It sounds like you've bought into this nonsense. Well, that's the framework you're giving me here.
That is the admitted goal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, is to prioritize race, at least to some degree, even if it's not the main factor.
So you said that's not at all what you believe, and then immediately started supporting that proposition. So that's frustrating. Also,
no, I didn't. So
DEI
the
is diversity.
Civil Rights Act?
DEI. Hold on.
So
DEI stands for what?
Hiring based on
what is
race.
DEI, Ted? What is DEI, Ted? Right. Which
diversity,
of those three things?
Which violates the Civil Rights Act.
Which of those things, diversity, equity, or inclusion, do you have a major problem with?
I have a major problem with equity. I support equality, not equity.
Okay. Can you please give us a difference?
The difference is that
unsurprised that you have a problem with diversity, but I would like you to define equity as opposed to equality.
Right, I'm getting to that. Equity is equality of outcome. Equality is equality of opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's draw a really clear-cut example.
Diversity. I have a problem with forced diversity, or the idea that it's an inherent strength.
Let's get a really clear-cut example then. We're going to get to that in a minute too. Let's get a really clear-cut, simple example, right? You said equity is equality of outcome, and equality is equality of opportunity, and that's what you're more focused on. So let's say we have a 100-meter race, right? And we have two people are going to run this race. One of them is missing a leg. Equality, the same track, the same distance, the same starting time, and they get as fast as they can go. Is that a fair race?
Yep, that's how it should work.
Okay, that's fucking dumb. Because that's the whole point of what we're talking about here, is that in this country, everybody should have the opportunity to be free and happy and successful, to try to strive for life, liberty, and happiness. You can't do that if the circumstances of your birth inherently determine how successful you're going to be. So equality of opportunity alone isn't good enough. You need to guarantee that people have the equal chance to succeed, not just the same starting pistol. Do you understand why that matters?
I disagree. I think equality of opportunity is what matters, not equity.
Qasim, do you have a different example you'd like to try, or do you want to move on to the next thing?
I think where our friend is probably struggling to understand the point we're trying to make here is if he truly believed that, if he truly believed equality and not equity, then he would be at the forefront of calling for reparations for Black people over the last several hundred years. He would be the first one to be at the forefront to call for restitution for women who didn't have equal financial access until 1974, for crying out loud. He would be the first one to ensure that our immigration policies now are the same immigration policies that Europeans had for a period of about 150, 200 years, where when they arrived through virtual open borders, no visa requirement, they got, nearly 270 million acres.
You don't have to go on a monologue.
Let me finish.
I don't support that stuff.
Okay, but you don't support that stuff, Ted.
Sorry, I apologize, Qasim. Ted, if you were listening with even half of your brain, you would realize that was the point he was making, is that you don't support those things. You weren't listening. You were just waiting for your turn to speak.
The point of this call is that we disagree. So let's get to something useful rather than just monologues.
But
see, here's the thing. What he was saying was really insightful. You should be listening to it. Qasim, please continue. I loved what you were saying. I thought it was really a good point. I hope that Ted might pick up a little tail end of it.
The point of what I'm saying is that if you truly believed in equality alone and not equity, then you would be at the forefront of calling for reparations for Black people, but you don't support that. You'd be at the forefront of calling for restitution for women, but you don't support that. You would be at the forefront of saying that immigration now should be the same as was given to white people from Europe for well over 150 years, where they got 270 million acres of land for free via the Homestead Act. What you want is for white people to have all those benefits for hundreds of years. And when Black and brown people and women say, hey, can we have laws that allow us even a fraction of that access? Now suddenly you're like, whoa. I don't make the rules. Equality is the only way to go. The hell with equity. Right. How does that make any sense whatsoever?
So do you know that Asian Americans actually have a higher median income rate and a lower incarceration rate than white people?
Who does?
Asian Americans.
Yeah, because Asian Americans
pretty much dispels the idea of white privilege.
Because
white
Asian Americans
isn't real.
Don't trust me. You're talking to an Asian American, and do not throw the model minority trope on me. That's because Asian Americans, one, were banned from immigration until about 1965. Two, didn't suffer genocide at the hands of white supremacists. Three, weren't enslaved for 400 years by white supremacists. So the fact that the immigration policies that were enacted post 1965 allowed primarily, exclusively well-educated, highly educated Asians to selectively come in, and then to point to them and say, look, there's no oppression here. All you're doing is proving the point that you only let in a select few Asians who had, like my father, had a postdoctorate, and that's why he was able to get a work visa to come here in the first place post 1965. The rest of the broader
we need immigrants. I support immigrants. We need legal immigrants and not illegal immigrants.
Okay, but my point is that what you define as illegal immigrants now would define the entire structure of how white people came here in the first place. Do you support deporting all of them and making them come through the legal way now?
Yeah, I support.
Because if so, you should probably self-deport.
I should probably what?
So do you support, if you say you support legal immigration, do you support deporting all the white Europeans who came here through what would now be defined as illegal immigration?
You mean, well, if they're here today, then yes, deport them if they're illegal. But I think you're talking about ancestors who are now dead.
Or their children. I mean, because now we're deporting children of undocumented immigrants too. So do you support deporting the children?
I don't support ending birthrights. I don't support ending birthright citizenship.
That's not the question I asked. The question that I asked was, if you support so-called legal immigration as it is today, do you also support applying that same standard to all people or only going forward?
I support, apply the immigration laws to all people. If you're not here legally, you shouldn't be here.
Great. When do you self-deport?
Say it again. When do you self-deport?
Yeah, because you said you support applying the immigration laws to all people. So then when do you self-deport? Because chances are your ancestors came here at a time that would be defined as illegal immigration. So when are you going to self-deport?
Right, but like I said, there's a thing called birthright citizenship. Even if my grandfather was here legally, I would be born here, so I'm legal.
Oh, so you don't support applying the laws to all people. You want to make exceptions. That sounds like an equity argument.
No, that's not exception. That's in the Constitution. Birthright citizenship for everybody.
But that's my point, though. You see how
which is about equity.
Which is literally about equity. Do you understand what equity does for you now?
That's not equity. That's for everybody. That's in the Constitution.
Yes, it guarantees that everyone has an equal chance at the same outcome. That's equity.
Right. That's equality. It's not equity. Equity is communism.
It's not equality. If it was equality, it would just be everybody's a citizen. It's saying if you're born here, you aren't in control of the circumstances of your birth. Therefore, we're going to give you the same opportunities as everybody else that is here. That's equity. It's taking something about your identity that you don't get to control, understanding the intersectional argument, and allowing you equal chance at a good outcome.
That's not
what are we
equity to
doing?
me. But
to
you said you're a man. Qasim, you said that you're a man, so you have privilege, right? So what is a man?
Male privilege.
Are we back to gender?
Man is male to you. Man is male to you? That's my position.
No. Great, but I'm having difficulty moving on to a new argument until we resolve the first one. I don't do the circular argument nonsense. We need to first acknowledge either equity has a meaning or it doesn't. You can't on one hand say you don't support equity, but then when I give you an example of how equity has benefited you, suddenly say that's no longer equity. Like, words have meanings. And if you want to start debating what the meaning of man and woman is, let's start with equity first, so I know that you actually stick to definitions, then we can go on to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that birthright citizenship is equity, so we're going to have to agree to disagree.
I think what I keep seeing here over and over, there's this old adage when we talk about things like this, that when you are in a position of privilege, equality feels like oppression. And that's what I'm seeing over and over here, is that like what Qasim was trying to get across to you when you interrupted him was that what you're talking about, the equality that you seem to try to be championing here, if you were actually serious about that, you would necessarily want the kind of reparations and the kind of what's the word to say? Go back and fix a thing. I'm just going to say reparations and leave it at that because I don't know words. Yes. But like you would be supporting these kind of policies, and you would be supporting the kind of intersectional arguments that we're talking about here. You know, in this country, we had 400 years of slavery. Then we had Jim Crow laws. Then when we finally allowed Black people to start building some sort of wealth, we burned their cities to the ground. Here in Tulsa, where I'm at, we dropped freaking fire bombs and shot people out of airplanes. Like, we destroyed every bit of Black wealth for hundreds of years. And then finally, now, within the last couple of decades, we've said, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps like everybody else did, not acknowledging the fact that white people have benefited from all that trauma. We gave them all of these problems. We took everything they had, enriched ourselves with their suffering, and now we're telling them, just be like us, just be rich, just work harder, just whatever. If you were serious about equality, you would want to level the playing field, and you would say, these people have been put down for so long, they need to be lifted up to the same level that everybody else is at so that they can succeed and start the race at the same point and have the same equal opportunity. But you don't do that because you see these people over here.
Everybody has the same opportunity. What opportunities do people not have?
They don't.
What opportunities do they not have? And what opportunities do they lack?
Ted, they fundamentally don't, and this is not an opinion.
White people talking about on average they have lower income. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, on average they have lower income, because that is true.
That's not what we're saying.
What is it then?
But it's so much beyond that. It's so much beyond that. Look,
generational wealth.
Generational wealth is a big part of it. What Forrest has pointed out, there are numbers that back this up. Fundamentally, numbers that back this up. Right, and if you don't want to talk about the racial divide, let's talk about the gender divide, right? Women couldn't get a credit card on their own, couldn't get any financial credit until 1974. 200 years after the country was established, the country finally decided, you know what, maybe women are intelligent beings, and we should make sure they have
it's
access.
2025 now. That's the thing. It's 2025. You guys always want to go back to the past, and that's what wokeness really is. It's just obsessing over all the problems
from that time till today. So help me. I think with the problem that you're not able to define for us is, when did that justice happen? When did that equality happen? Because you had 200 years as a head start as a man over women in this country. So you're telling me that just because a law was passed, if I come and I break your house every year for 200 years, and meanwhile I'm building my house bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then after 200 years, I say, okay, I'm just going to stop destroying your house, But now I've built my house for 200 years, and I say, why isn't your house as big as mine? You clearly have the chance to do so. Do you not see the 200-year head start as a problem? Do you see that that's just like no big deal?
Here's the problem with that analogy is it looks at it as two buckets of people, like white people and black people. But like you said,
Yes,
it's individuals. So there's poor white people.
Because
there's
that's the way it has been for a long time.
And there's very rich black people, right? So
America literally invented the concept of race as it is today in order to make that reality happen, Ted.
Why would you apply it based on the whole group when you admitted that there are black people who are very rich and there are white people who are very poor?
Ted, this is the problem. What you're running into here over and over and over and over is just these like throwaway talking points that are used to dismiss any kind of serious critical thinking about this. What Qasim just laid out to you is a really simple analogy, right? If my great-grandpa steals from your great-grandpa and leaves them completely destitute, and then my grandpa steals from your grandpa and leaves them completely destitute, and then my dad steals from your dad and leaves them completely destitute, and now I, enriched by 4 generations of stolen wealth, am sitting on a throne of gold, and I look down at you in poverty and I say, just work harder. It makes me an asshole. It doesn't make any sense to say, well, we should just try to work together. And if you do manage to succeed and you do manage to pull yourself up and you do manage to become wealthy, it doesn't make any sense for me to then say, see, everything that happened in the past doesn't matter because you were able to make it anyway. You were still dealt a serious injustice before you were even born. And that still mattered to you and that still impacted your life and changed your financial outcome. As hard as you worked, you could have been farther along. So that's what we're talking about. When we talk about the past, we're not just deflecting to some shit that we don't, that's easier to talk about. It still matters today. Those scars are still weeping.
Right. Okay. So here's the problem. What you're saying is actually pretty true, right? There's a lot of goodness in that, and that we should work to fight injustice. The problem is it's not practical. So how are you going to distribute reparations when, everybody's pretty much mixed now? There's really no purity.
Is your
total made up thing by racists?
I'm just gonna stop here for just a second and just clarify. Is your actual, like, maybe you don't want to, is the actual point that you want to make right now, yes, I acknowledge there is great injustice, but it's just impractical to solve it? Is that really where you want this conversation to go? Is that the hill you want to die on?
I don't think it's impractical to solve it. I think it's impractical to do reparations, specifically what you guys were talking about.
Do you think that we can completely fix this problem, that we can completely 100% make it right and just make this totally normal, and we have now completely enacted justice for every person who has had any kind of historical oppression? Do you think it's possible to just completely make it right in any way?
See, the thing is, all over the world,
that was a yes or no question.
That
was a yes or no question.
So no,
that was a yes or no.
I don't think so. All of human history is a story of hatred and oppression and injustice and atrocity.
Right.
It's not it's not just America. It's everywhere.
Ted, I agree. I agree with you. I don't think there's a way to fix it, and I do think that human history is largely, a story of oppression. I agree. But do you think we could try to make it a little bit better?
Of course, and I support doing that kind of stuff, but not reparations.
And congratulations,
not
Ted.
Hiring.
That means you're fucking woke.
No, I don't agree with reparations, affirmative action, preferential hiring, that kind of stuff. I support uplifting people through communities on an individual basis.
And we're right back to
being
this.
colorblind.
Here's the thing.
You actually fucking said the word colorblind.
Ted, it's really irrelevant that you don't. Ted, here's the thing. It's actually irrelevant that you don't support affirmative action, or it's actually irrelevant. The point that Forrest made shows you already agree with us that there is injustice and we should try to make it less unjust. We agree on that. How we do that, we can figure that out. But we can disagree on what the best way to do that is. But the point.
Okay, so let's move on now.
No. We can't move on until
you guys have made your points. I'll even concede. I'll even say I concede. All right, so we'll move on. I was wrong.
Right.
just move
You
on.
concede
So,
that there is historical injustice and that we should work and take affirmative actions
so
to stop that
I
historical
want to ask,
injustice.
the point of this call is about Trump. So, what do you guys support illegal immigration?
Define illegal immigration for me.
Breaking the U.S. immigration laws, crossing the borders illegally.
Okay.
What is
or overstaying your visa?
No, I want to just 1 second, because I've practiced immigration law for quite some time. So where do you define as crossing the border illegally?
Crossing the U.S. borders without permission, without being in the bounds of the law, overstaying your visa, violating any of the immigration law.
And so those who follow the rules, those who abide by the laws, you support them being here indefinitely without any issue, correct?
Yeah, I support legal immigration. Like I said, we were founded on immigrants. We need immigrants. We need smart, good immigrants to come over legally.
So I think at this point, I'm going to ask you to show me at any point in history when this definition that you've defined has applied to the tens of millions of white Europeans who came in, because you won't find a moment in history where that happened. And in reality,
so once again,
immigration law,
you guys want to go back into the past. We're focusing on Trump's presidency, which is 2025.
Right. And so just let me finish my point.
Stop going into the past. Let's focus on today.
He's
you
not.
Guys support.
He's not. It sounds like he is when you don't think about it, but he's not.
Ted, you got to let me finish the point, and then you'll understand that I'm not talking about the past. I'm talking about right now. Because right now, what Trump is defining as quote unquote illegal immigration is an arbitrary standard that he's literally made up over the last few years to make it more difficult for Black and brown people to immigrate. This is a guy who just in the last month opened the doors for alleged white genocide victims from South Africa, a made-up term that doesn't exist, while blocking 1,600 vetted Afghan refugees who did everything right, exactly as they were supposed to do, followed the letter of the law, were approved by the US State Department as legal documented immigrants. And he said, you know what? No, the hell with that. You're illegal. He asked the Supreme Court to take 500,000 Venezuelan and Cuban and El Salvadorian immigrants who are documented, who did everything right, and say, no, make them illegal. And Supreme Court agreed. This is happening in real time right now. Documented legal immigrants who cross the border legally with a visa, with permission, the way they were supposed to, and he just made them illegal. So the point I'm trying to make is your definition of legal immigration is not a legal or consistent standard. Is Trump literally making stuff up based off of the color of someone's skin? That's why it's fascism. That's why it's white supremacy. And that's why I'm confused why you support that when you claim you support equality.
No, so I can even say that I don't support everything Trump does. I don't think he's perfect. I think the South Africa refugee thing was definitely unfair. And yeah, it definitely seemed a little bit racist. But
a little bit.
Biden, on the other hand, had a totally open border. So that's just pretty much indefensible to just not enforce the border.
Well,
ignoring the fact that sorry, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you'll be shocked to know, Ted, that if you look at the data on who deported more people, Biden deported more people than did Donald Trump. And if you listened to immigration rights advocates, we were screaming at Biden that this is unjust. What are you doing? Stop this nonsense.
I don't think it was. I think Obama did. I think I'd push back. I don't think it was Biden that deported more, but I do believe Obama deported more.
It was definitely Biden more as well.
It was both of them, as a matter of fact. I think Obama had like more deportations than like any president in history or some shit like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing, Ted.
But
is
the
that
border
like what you just
crossings are down record.
What you just said is obviously and demonstrably untrue. But what I think is more important is that if you're talking about how you support Trump, trying to secure the border and get all these illegal immigrants out of here, but you support legal immigration, you support people following the rules, then why the hell is ICE arresting people at their immigration hearings when they go to court to do things properly? Why is ICE waiting outside to arrest them? Why are we doing that right now?
again, I'm not going to say I support everything Trump's doing, everything ICE is doing, but I'm going to say that Biden was neglecting the border laws. There was true neglect, and that was the problem.
But here's the thing, man, is that Trump is saying that he is going to shut down the border and he's going to stop all these illegal immigrants. What he is doing is actually just rounding up brown people. So what you seem to be doing here is you're saying, well, Trump has these ideas and the words he's saying, the things that I heard on Fox News that Trump said, and that's all you've got. What Qasim and I are actually showing you is his actual track record. And what his actual track record shows is if you're white, you can stay.
Yeah, well, the actual track record shows that there are dangerous immigrants. There truly are. This guy in Colorado who threw the Molotov cocktail.
Actually,
do you mean the dangerous immigrants like the fucking cartel members that he just brought in, or like what?
Yeah, I mean the guy that threw the Molotov cocktail was pretty bad, and he was an illegal immigrant. I think he overstayed a visa.
Okay. So first of all, let's be clear that overstaying a visa is the same thing as a parking ticket. It's a civil violation. It's not a felony, first of all. Second of all, 2 points I want to bring up. It's
violating immigration law.
Okay, so is speeding. So we should deport you for that too, I guess. 2 things I want to point out. 1, 150-year study by Northwestern University looked at crime rates from citizens, from immigrants, and from undocumented immigrants. And there has never been a point in the last 150 years where undocumented immigrants or immigrants ever had a higher crime rate or violent crime rate than U.S. citizens. By far, the most violent demographic in American history has always been U.S. citizens. 1. 2.
Specifically white dudes.
Yeah, exactly right. 2.
That's not true in England. Did you know England migrants?
Oh my God, are we living in England right now? My bad. Forrest, I thought we were living in the United States.
We were talking about Trump in America.
I get confused.
England is facing a serious migrant crisis.
I need you to help me out with the second part. I really need your help on the second part. Whenever we bring up something in the past, you're like, hey, stop living in the past. We're talking about the here and now. And now we're talking about Trump and his fascist policies and his arbitrary immigration policies. And you say, but Biden, but Biden, but Biden. Why do you keep bringing up the past? But when we bring up the past, it's something wrong. Help me understand. What are we missing?
Because this call is about whether I support Trump or not. And part of why I say he has good ideas is because he's doing better than Biden. That's why.
Biden isn't running. But I'm sorry.
He was running.
That's the thing. That's what gets me is that like we're saying, hey, Trump's a dick, and your thing is, yeah, but Biden. I don't support Biden either. I didn't like Biden. Yeah. I'm not a Biden fan. Fuck Biden. Yeah. But also fuck Donald Trump, and fuck Donald Trump objectively more.
I would agree with you, actually. I wouldn't say more, but I would say they're both bad. I don't think any of them are good.
Also, Ted, are you bringing up Biden because you're admitting that things that happened in the past affect things happening right now?
Ooh, girl.
Again, I'm bringing up Biden because he was the alternative to Trump until Harris took over.
And so the things that he did affect what's happening right now. Is that the point you're making?
No, I'm using it as a comparison to show that Trump's policies are preferable to the previous ones, and that's why I support what he's doing.
So it's preferable to arbitrarily change immigration law based on what Trump wants? Because guess what? There's about 600,000
immigration law.
There's about 600,000 undocumented white, Canadian, and European immigrants. When was the last time you saw ICE raid a predominantly white school?
We should deport them. There was a guy I saw on the news, a Dutch guy. He was really white and he was deported. So they should keep doing that.
The one guy. No, but you haven't
Omar Garcia, the guy who was charged with human trafficking.
Ted, you haven't actually explained. You keep avoiding my simple question. It's a very simple question I'm asking you. The question I'm asking you is, how do you define what's legal and illegal when I gave you multiple examples of legal documented immigrants that Trump is arbitrarily now changing and making them illegal after the fact?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. I have to look that up.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
That sounds about right. Yep.
Yeah. Also, I love that you threw in there that Omar Garcia was involved in human trafficking at the end, which is the new thing that the press secretary just kind of threw out there. He was deported on a clerical error, and Trump admitted that it was a mistake and that he was innocent and he shouldn't have been deported. And then they just started saying he was a criminal. And like that's the thing.
No,
is that, like
they actually they said he was illegal back in like 2019. It wasn't. So the judge said he was illegal back in 2019, and then they had a.
But here's what I think is so important.
Said, okay,
here's what I think is so important, Ted, is that even if he was an illegal immigrant, even if he was a domestic abuser and a human trafficker and a drug pusher and a gang member, and even if he was just the worst of the worst of the worst, right? Do you know what should have happened to him? He should have gotten due process, which is guaranteed to everyone in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Trump should have brought him back. The Supreme Court said that.
And yet, Donald Trump has said that we can't give these people due process because that would take too much time, which rings very much in the same note as what you said earlier about how, yes, we should try to have some sort of racial justice, but that's complicated. I think I see the trend here where it's just, if it's easy, then you're into it. But like, if it's not easy.
The gender transition for minors, and do you support males playing in women's sports?
Now we're on to the next thing.
That's a big thing.
I would
Trump's
be happy.
Doing. It's been a big focus.
Yeah, no, he's been really staunchly anti-science in both of his administrations, in both of his terms. So like, I'm not surprised whatsoever about this. I would love to dig into it a little bit. I'm actually a biologist. I would love to talk about, sex and gender with you for a moment. I just want to make sure that it's not just going to be the next pivot that we jump onto this next thing to avoid having a difficult conversation that you don't want to have.
I mean, I feel like you guys have made good points, and I'm just trying to go over everything I think about Trump that he's doing that's good.
Sure.
So
yeah, Trump. Yes, Trump is very much anti-trans and really kind of anti-LGBT in general, because he is anti.
I'm pro-LGBT.
Okay. The thing is, he is anti-trans for the same reason that he's also anti-climate change, and the same reason that he's against like the park service and all sorts of other things, and like going off against national park. He's just anti-science. He doesn't understand science. He doesn't care about science. He cares about his parochial worldview and the way things were when he was a child and what he's seen on television. And that's how he's legislating. The fact that he literally, one of the first things he said when he was elected, or when he was sworn in, was that America recognizes two genders, male and female, and they are determined at conception, not even just at birth. That is that is an incredibly anti-science, ignorant ass position. It's
pro-science. That's not ignorant. You are ignorant.
So
male and female are determined at conception.
So let's dig into it really quick. Do you understand that sex and gender are different things?
Yeah, so I don't believe gender exists. I believe there are two sexes, zero genders, and infinite personalities.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense at all. But like, fine, just whatever. We'll just jump into it. You said sex is determined at conception. What the hell does that mean?
Yep.
Because the way that Trump defined it, I almost guarantee is not the way that you're about to define it.
So Trump defined it by gametes, belonging to the sex that produces the small gamete or the large gamete. So if you're male, you are belonging to the sex that. It doesn't mean you produce the gamete at conception. It means you belong to the sex that produces that gamete. So if you're male, you do belong to the sex that produces the small gamete.
Okay. And so is that how you're going to define sex, is by gamete production?
By belonging to the sex that produces the gamete. So that's why an infertile male is still male.
Okay.
Infertile female is
so
still female.
then gamete production isn't actually how we define sex. It's belonging to. So how do you determine who belongs to that sex?
Through chromosomes.
Chromosomes. Okay, so what chromosomes are we talking about?
XX female, XY male, and then there are the disorders of sexual development, often called intersex, which are not third sexes. They're just disorders of each one.
Nobody said they are. Nobody said they are.
A lot of people do. I didn't say you guys did, but a lot of people do.
Okay, well, nobody serious says they are, I guess. But like
Klinefelter's is still male, right? Somebody who has XXY, that's not a third option. That's just a male with a defect.
So let's dig into a different intersex condition then. Let's talk about maybe either De La Chapelle syndrome or Swyer syndrome. I'll start with Swyer because I think it's more interesting personally. Swyer syndrome is also known as XY female syndrome. You have XY allosomes, and yet you develop anatomically as a female. And there are case studies of women with Swyer syndrome getting pregnant and giving birth. So if we're determining this not by gamete size, but by chromosomes, then either we need to say that these are men that can give birth, or we need to say that some women have XY chromosomes, therefore chromosomes alone are not enough to determine sex. Which one is it?
Yeah, I'd have to look into that, but I will concede that there is some complexity to sex.
Right.
However,
so
that doesn't mean that a full male who identifies as a full female should be in women's sports.
So again, this is why sex and gender are different things. We'll talk about why here in a little bit if we have time for it. The thing is, when we talk about this stuff, you're right. There are a lot of complexities to sex. Sex is a multivariate system with lots of different pieces that go into it. No single one piece is solely determinant of the outcome, and no single one piece has only two options. And so what you end up with is a sex spectrum, a bimodal distribution of sexual characteristics upon which most of us fall pretty close to the poles, but a lot of us don't. Like we're talking about tens of hundreds of millions of people here that don't fall close to the poles in these simple binary categories. And so what Trump is saying with this, like I said, anti-science rhetoric of you're either XX or XY, you either produce sperm or eggs, you're either male or female, and that's all there is. He is erasing the existence of not just trans people, but also intersex people and also non-binary people. He is erasing the existence of hundreds of millions of people around the world, let alone just the people here in the United States. And also, might I add, when you said that I am ignorant for signal, he is also going against the academic consensus in biology, in psychology, in oh gosh, the word that I was looking for just flew out of my freaking brain, and that's fine. Anthropology, the thing that I have a fucking master's degree in. Yes, he is going against the academic consensus of actual scientists who study this shit. My first master's was in anthropology. My second master's was in biomedical sciences. At no point did any of my professors, textbooks, research studies, anything come up with anything even remotely close to the ignorant shit that Trump is saying, because anybody who understands the very basics of this stuff can tell why it's dumb. So Trump is just saying these simple, reductionist, stupid things that he heard on TV somebody else say, and a bunch of people who aren't biologists are nodding along with them because they don't understand this stuff. He's playing to your ignorance and your fear, and that sucks. And I can tell Ted doesn't care because Ted just hung up. So, fuck, man.
There you go. There you go. I mean, by the way, I enjoyed that part immensely. I'm not a scientist. I just love hearing scientists talk about this kind of stuff. So I know when to shut up and to stay in my lane, but I appreciate that.
Oh.
But look, I think for those listening, the takeaway in that conversation with Ted is it's wild how he equates the solution with refusing to acknowledge the problem. And he acknowledged the problem. He's like, yeah, I agree there's injustice and we should do something. And that was a great question you asked for us. Can we do something to make it better? And he goes, yes, great. Argument's over. Mm-hmm. You agree that intersectionality matters. You agree with wokeness, even though you define it pejoratively. You can have differences of opinion on how to solve those problems, and that's fine. There's many ways to solve problems, but that's not the debate we're having. The debate we're having is whether inequality and injustice exists, and I'm glad we're on the same page.
Right. It's so stupid that this is where we have to go with that. But oh my glob, it is frustrating that we have to go through this again and again and again and remind people that, like, if we're talking about just intersex people, that's 136 million people. You know what I mean? Like that don't fit into these neat little boxes. And even the people that you think fit in the boxes, I guarantee most of them fucking don't. What I wasn't going to dig into with Ted, because holy shit, it would have been a whole other 10-minute or a 30-minute conversation, is that, like, anatomical sex is different than, like, phenotypic sex or gonadal sex or hormonal sex or chromosomal sex or genetic sex. These are all different levels of this. And this is a big reason why sex and gender are different things, because gender varies across cultures, across generations, from person to person, from day to day. We see variations in gender. And I guarantee Ted would have agreed with that if he actually logicked it out, rather than just sticking to the talking points that he tried to jump to. And by the way, you not talking when I'm talking science is exactly how I felt when you were talking about like the history of oppression across women and black people. I was like, yeah, dude, yeah.
I appreciate the partnership. I wanted to take a much pettier route than you, Forrest. I wanted to say, hey, since you care so much about women's sports, can you name me 5 professional female athletes and just watch them watch crickets? Because that's always the response. It's just crickets, but they don't actually care. And someone, I don't know who tweeted it. Somebody had a brilliant tweet of how are women? How is it we can't have the same people who care about women's sports will tell you that we have to kick trans men out of the military because they're not strong enough. Like, well, which one is it? Are they super freak athletes or just not strong enough soldiers? Like, what's that fine line they're trying to pinpoint there as well?
It's so funny. It's so funny.
Hey, come on, man. We gotta promote that clip we all just watched.
Well, I'd rather not shill.
Okay, well, Daddy has a $2,000 a month red oak habit, and you're gonna. I am your production god, and you will shill when I tell you to shill. Dance for me, baby.
Go! God damn it! Why did my life come to this? Go to patreon.com/call-the-line and donate. God damn it!
This is what happens when we let live chatters write our scripts.